Okay, Assalamualaikum and a very good day to all present today. Welcome to the third round of English debate competition InterVarsity Science e-Debate Challenge 2021. The motion for this debate is, this House believe that Star Trek is more scientifically sound than Star Wars. I, Ainin, will be the chairperson and the timekeeper for Room 5. Let me now introduce the debaters to you. Acting as the government team for this debate is the team from KUPTM-B, with Mr. Mohammad Hassan as the Prime Minister, Mr. Isec as the Deputy Prime Minister, and Mr. Vorlindir as the Government Whip. Acting as the opposition team for this debate is the team from Let's Yamcha, with Ms. Yap as the opposition leader, Ms. Ili as the second opposition speaker, and Mr. Deva as the opposition whip. Our panel of adjudicators consists of Mr. Muhammad Afdal Khan from UniKL and Ms. Alexia in the YouTube comments. Okay, where we start? Now, to open the case from the government team, I will call upon the Prime Minister to start the debate session. You can start whenever you want.
Tess, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very loud and clear.
In moving forward to the age where we foresee ourselves as a complex, modern, very futuristic creature, we propose today motion this House believe that Star Trek is more scientifically sound than Star Wars. Good morning to our honorable adjudicators, Speaker of the House, Member of Oppositions, my ally from affirmative side, and to all ladies and gentlemen that present here today. So, Mr. Speaker, as an affirmative side of the House today, we strongly agree that Star Trek is more scientifically sound than Star Wars. For the clear direction of this debate, I will be defining the terms of the motion today. We start with the Star Trek. What is Star Trek? So Star Trek is a science fiction series about a voyage to the space to explore the universe and to find the inhabitable planet. That is for the Star Trek. What is Star Wars? Star Wars is a science fantasy movie series that took place of somewhere mystical world where they can manipulate mystical power called as force that can be achieved through training and meditation. Next is more scientifically sound. So more scientifically sound, this is we defining it is more scientifically achievable and comprehensible by human when we hear or when we see something about it. So the conceptually, we as a government believe that the science fiction genre is scientifically sound or scientifically achievable and comprehensible compared to science fantasy. So that is for the definition today. The burden of proof that should be carried by the opposition is the opposition should convince the whole that science fantasy is scientifically more comprehensible compared to science fiction. The common ground of this debate is to extend the horizon of this debate. We should discuss on science fiction versus science fantasy and not Star Trek versus Star Wars in the term of which of this genre is more scientifically achievable and comprehensible by the human. So for today's motion, we as the government structured our case as the follow. I, as the first speaker, will present the first argument to the hall about the theme of science fiction. And my second speaker will continue our case further by presenting another argument about the setting of this genre. And our third speaker will cross-check the opposition side and deconstruct their case so the House can clearly see why today's motion should be accepted. Before I move to my first argument, any POI from the opposing side? If there are none, let's move to our first argument titled Theme of Science Fiction. So, Mr. Speaker, what is the main characteristic of the science fiction? So, the science fiction generally extrapolate the elements from real world to the fiction one. So, for example, in the Star Trek, space exploration has been a thing for mankind, where we have sent an astronaut to the moon and have sent robot to the Mars. So we also have dispatched a robot to get closer look of Mars and Moon. So in Star Trek, they extrapolate these elements by making the theme of the movies about exploring universe for new planet to live in. So in the end of Mr. Speaker, this is not a weird theme or a weird movie concept, because right now we have started to search for inhabitable planet other than Earth, resulting for discovery of new planet that may contain water for living things. So, Mr. Speaker, this movie that has been released on 1960 have foreseen this future exploration of mankind, and right now we are getting closer than ever to achieve it. This show you how that the theme of the science fiction, specifically this Star Trek, is more scientifically sound, more comprehensible by us today. Compared to the science fantasy, where the theme of science fantasy is completely disconnected from reality. For example, in Avengers movie, where there are some of the theme of the fantasy where the character, like Doctor Strange, that gain power from training and meditation, or from the locket name is Eye of Agamotto. So there is no scientific comprehension or explanation how can this, with this training and meditation, we can open the portal, we can teleport to one place to another by just circling and twisting our hand like Doctor Strange does. Or to turn back time, like when Doctor Strange fight the evil Dormammu that want to devour Earth. So, Mr. Speaker, we can see that theme in the science fantasy is not that scientifically comprehensible compared to the science fiction, where we can see ourselves in the near future searching for the new planet to be our new habitat other than Earth, rather than science fantasy, where we can see how they use the power of mind and to teleport from one place to one another, or the power of locket to turn back time and the thing like that. So, Mr. Speaker, I can say that the science fiction is more scientifically achievable and comprehensible compared to science fantasy, where we can see ourselves in the near future can achieve the theme that has been set in the science fiction movie. So I hope the case accepted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hassan. To open the case from the opposition team, I call
Wait,
upon the leader of
can you
opposition.
tell how many minutes? Can you...
Yes, I will type in the private chat.
Okay,
I'm
sure.
recording. Okay, thank you. Okay, I will call upon the leader of opposition, Miss Yap. Okay. Miss Yap, are you there?
Sorry, I have some connection issue. Let me change my line.
All right.
Okay. Is my sound audible?
Yes. You're loud and clear.
Okay. Nice. Okay, I will prefer my POI by unmute yourself. If I have time, I will take it. And if not, I would be sorry for that. And yeah, I'm setting my timing now. And I will count down to 3, 2, 1.
Okay, sure. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. So the question we pose to the government side is that, is Star Trek not a science fantasy as well? The thing is, the government is simply forgotten that the Star Trek is also a fantasy, and by applying the same logic, their word is unsound as well. When government say, yes, indeed, the government say they send an astronaut and robot to explore the space, like in the Mars, and we did have the assisting technology to do the same thing in the Star Wars. And I have no related to why they are mentioning the Doctor Strange in that speech at all. And the thing is that make the things become very, very critical is the transporter is in Star Trek is impossible to transport from one location. And I'm going to redefine the definition is that to have a fair debate, the magical concept from the Star Wars, such as the usage of force, must be completely disregarded from these motions. The issue of force is something far within our comprehensions. And this regarding that, the technologies under Star Wars are already achievable. We will provide to you an example on why Star Wars technology is completely feasible or is under serious considerations by scientific community for the betterment of the humanity. So, at the status quo now is that some of the technology is already achieved, and which will be elaborated further in my first argument, and some other technology in the Star Wars is on the way to achieve in the future as well. So we pose the burden of proof to the opposition side is that opposition side will need to prove how the concept behind the word of the Star Wars is actually not less significantly sound, if not more sound compared to the word of the Star Trek. So we are now moving on to our first arguments. So our first argument is that the Star Wars is scientifically sound as the existing technology has been achieved in the modern day society. And the theory behind that is that the new technology like holobot, like lifestable is already achieved in nowadays society. And other than the focus on the magical concept, which is the force, the technology under this Star Wars franchise, we can say, is already evolved in the real world in terms of like transportations, in terms of like communications, in terms of like the weapons, in terms of the AI, and yeah. So this is itself proves that we have already emulated some of the seemingly magical technology concept used in the Star Wars franchise, and proving that the soundness of the Star Wars as a scientific model for a futuristic society. Other than that, a few of the technology in Star Wars are literally under the lead developments or under research by scientists, even if it's remotely achievable. Moreover, the current case found that it's not only the scientist studio can do it, some was developed by the personal effort. For example, like land speeder. This will be illustrated later that this illustrated technology in Star Wars is accessible to the public in real life. So we are able to project the particles or matters to move at almost light speed. And although this does not account to any significant in the near future, this proves that the scientist community does take the concept of traveling in the hyperspace in the exact essence and have been trying hard to emulate the concept behind it in order for us to achieve the progress in the space travel. So now I'm coming to the example one by one to support what my elaboration just now. So the prototype like the lifesaver and the lightsaber sword, it was built by the Hacksmith Industries using the plasma. This means this thing is built to cut everything, which will be highly achievable for the industry stations of the life, and it's definitely proof that the lightsaber as a man weapon in the Star Wars, which was already achieved in the real life, despite the Hacksmith industry using the plasma. We are not necessarily using the same ingredients, but the concept there is the same in what is now applying in the real society modern days. And the deadly weapons with the potential to mass destruct are readily available, although that's not in the exact form in the form of the Death Star. And for example, the communications, in respect of the communications, the holograms, we are able to use communication with video conference features. And not only that, in 2017, Verizon USA and Korean Telecom South Korea and made the first holographic call using the 5G technology. Because in the advancement of our technology, like we have the 5G technology nowadays, many of the scientific, many of the inventions in the Star Wars is scientifically sound in our current our scenario and current status quo. And to make this call possible, two holograms were formed in that. I mean, what USA and South Korea, what their inventions, and both fully capable. And the outcome of this invention in the real life is that they are both of these using the 5G technology, and that they are both fully capable of conveying the user emotion and gesture at the same time. So another thing we would like to mention, proudly to mention, is that about the AI. AI is about the artificial intelligence was they were assisted in the Star Wars, like humanoid and humanoid things, robots, and it was also practicable in our real life. Is like humanoid, android, and AI robot from speech. And now we have the Sophia. Sophia in the Saudi Arabia, which invented by the Hong Kong to have the stand function as well. And then for the transportations, the hoverboards, we already in our real life, you already have the managed to create the hoverboards for individual users that can fly. And for the land speeder, that's what I said just now. There's a one solid provider. When then the person itself, the 40 years old from the Lincoln Shire person, he used 5 bits to build a life-size model of the Luke Skywalker's iconic land speeder with jets. So everything here is like probable. And what is the impact is that this evidence on itself proves the seriousness of the science community in emulating whatever concept behind the fictional technology used in the Star Wars. And by emulation this technology, the human society will be able to largely benefit, especially in terms of the transportations, which I mentioned just now, the use of the hoverboards and the use of the land speeder. We are proudly to propose.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Yap. To continue our debate today, I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister, to continue the case for their side. Mr. Isec.
All right, Beth, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Let me just
All right. I would like to make a war of white with you, but I see that you are totally unarmed. But before that, thank you, government, opposition, and the rest members of the House, and also the Miss Chairperson. So before I'm going further to provide another extra points to strengthen our case from our government side, let me asking you guys to see clearly what are the some big and ridiculous mistake that happened from their side. At the beginning of the debate itself, ladies and gentlemen, they are going to disregard regarding the definition that have been brought by our beloved Prime Minister. But it is clearly and it is already a status quo in this debate where we have already defined the Star Trek is a science fiction genre, whereby the Star Wars is the science fantasy genre. That is this kind of genre that we would like to debate is which one is more scientifically sound. But from your side, you are going to disregard regarding our definition, but indirectly you are going to accepting our case, which is it is not relevant at all, ladies and gentlemen. That is the first one. And the second one, you are talking about that whereby the Star Trek is the fantasy as well. I bet this is a bad assumption that you would like to propose in today's debate, ladies and gentlemen, because there have been clearly Star Trek is a science fiction movie that have been providing regarding that are more achievable and comprehensible compared to the Star Wars that have been clearly mentioned by our Prime Minister today. So you cannot just simplify say that we are bringing the wrong definition and the wrong status quo, because it has been proven to us and it has been proven in the hall today that Star Trek is a science fiction genre, ladies and gentlemen. And then the second one where regarding their points, I think the opposition leader has brought a lot of ridiculous argument, which is regarding the technologies that have been existed now. They're similar to the Star Wars. Yes, you mentioned about the transport, exploring in space, and all, but you are not giving us a reality, a logical scenario. What kind of the exploring that have been done in the Star Wars movie? Because in the Star Wars movie, yes, they have been exploring space, but what kind of exploring that they have been made? Because they have just they have been portray to us a space war that happened in there. They are portraying us someone who have a superpower in term of in to make a fight, to survive in the war. So is it naturally logic in our nowadays era? Because when we talk about the science fiction is more reality, whereby it is more achievable, where in the Star Trek most of the kind of exploring or all of the R&D that have been done in the Star Trek is similar, and it is also been follow and also inspire the all of the countries to develop technologies, such as example in term of telepresent and all that will be provided in our points later. And that is their mistake, ladies and gentlemen. And then when they talk about the transportation, ladies and gentlemen, that is totally different from what have been portrayed in the Star Wars. Because in the Star Wars, they're just simply showing us that there are a lot of human or even the living organism
POI, please.
who can drive who can drive the spaceship without and breathing naturally, which is more nonsense and ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. That is not logical
POI,
at
please.
all compared to the science fiction that have been portrayed in the Star Trek. Before I going to proceed with my points, yes, one.
Are you largely unaware of the usage of spaceships such as Millennium Falcon, which uses the concept of light speed technology? Are you not aware of the transportation used in Star Wars?
Yes, maybe you can say that they have been exist, but it also be exist in the Star Trek. What kind the logical portraying that we would like to debate in this discussion session, ladies and gentlemen? Because yes, you maybe say that Star Wars have been exploring that Star Wars have been portraying that this kind of technology also have been adapted into this era, but what kind the method that they use, the scenario, the storyline that have been shown to us, is it logic? Because the one who can drive the spaceship without breathing and breathing naturally without need extra oxygen and all. So I think that is more ridiculous compared to science fiction. And then moving on to the next point from our government side, which is the dystopian setting. So what is the dystopian setting? Maybe generally speaking, I can say that it is a science fiction stories who often provide and take place in a dystopian mode or hyper technological future. So this is clearly shows where they are giving us a reality, achievable future that is more realistic rather than fantasy rather than science fantasy. Because example in the Star Trek, the most common technologies that have been shown to us is regarding the tablet computers, which is the futuristic computer interface is used by the space facing organization to punch in organic for system, where we could see nowadays the tablets and iPads have been developed more and more for people in for to be utilized by human in terms of to ease their work, to communicate and all. And then the second technology that been naturally and logically shown in the movie regarding the telepresence, whereby it is special technologies that allow one person to connect with one another virtually. And then nowadays we can see we have the Google Meet, Zoom, StreamYard. Even now we are debating virtually using a StreamYard. It is more relevant and more existed in our today's era, ladies and gentlemen. And then the third technology that have been portraying regarding the universal translator, whereby the universal translator in the movie are using is a essential piece of kit to decode foreign language. Also, they have been existed in our today's era, whereby we have a Google Translate and all, and then we also have tricoders, whereby the tricoders also have been exist in the military sectors in our today's era, ladies and gentlemen. But compared to the Star Wars, which is the Star Science science fantasy, ladies and gentlemen, the technology that have been portraying or the all the features that have been showed there is more irrelevant and more ridiculous, such as, for example, levitation, psychokinesis, force lighting and all. And then such Avengers itself, ladies and gentlemen, a science fantasy movie that shows someone who have a superpower to surviving in war to protect people using the superpower. It is more ridiculous and irrelevant compared to the science fiction genre that is more comprehensible and more achievable in for our future, ladies and gentlemen. That is one of the main debate topic that should be discussed regarding despite of talking about comparing and basically debating about the movie itself. So with that, I raise my case. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Isec. Now I call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition to continue the case for their side. Miss Ellie.
Okay, give me a second, yeah? I want to set my timer.
Yes, sure. I'm using 2 timers as well.
Okay. All right. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening. I bid to the adjudicators and fellow debaters. This House believes that Star Trek is more scientifically sound than Star Wars, and we, as the opposition side, strongly object to the motion. And as the second speaker of the opposition side, I would address all the weaknesses brought up by the arguments of the leader and the deputy leader of the government side, but and present the opposition's case on the issue. First of all, I would like to address that it seems widely known that the government side does not really understand the storyline of Star Wars and Star Trek. So let me begin by rebutting all the points given by the government side. So first of all, the government side, they stated that, I would like to stress on this one example they give. They say that in Star Trek, they deploy technologies to discover other worlds, other planets that could be potentially inhabited by humans. Yes, now we're stressing on the point that they go to outer space. Star Wars also goes to outer space and discovers other planets, discovers other life forms. So how are you saying that it's more scientifically sound when they're both doing the same thing? The only difference is that their purpose is different. And the social standing cannot be seen as being the scientific objective. So just because the Jedis go out of space to fight the villain, it doesn't mean that they don't go out of space and don't discover other planets. They don't disprove the fact that there are other life forms outside of this universe, and so does Star Trek. So there, they haven't established really the dominance that Star Trek is more scientifically sound, because according to that, their argument has already crumbled. Let's see. Now let's look at argument from the government side, the second government. Now he stated that the technologies used in the Star Trek universe is more scientifically sound because they are using more. They are using like virtual presence. They're using virtual communication. You must understand that from the beginning of the episode of Star Wars, they're already using that kind of technology. They're already using other advancements, even advancement that wasn't present in today's day and age that are just being developed, such as holograms. That is why we brought up the point first in our first opposition's speech. So now, okay. Sorry, I will close my cam because it seems my sound is breaking. Okay, now let's look to the opposition side. The first speaker of the opposition side stated that that there are some of the technologies that are shown in the Star Wars that are already present in today's day and age. And the government side, they cannot disregard this fact. Hovercrafts, holograms, and even lightsabers are being developed in today's day and age due to the fact, first of all, that they don't disallow the physical laws, and second of all, because of the fans in the tenacity. Do you see any of the Star Trek fans coming up with any of the technologies that they made? Mostly, the Star Wars fans are more tenacious in making the reality of Star Wars technological advancements. Then, in Star Wars, the technology remains consistent. They do not invent a new form of space travel and then forget about it minutes later, like as if it has never existed. So let's look at my first point. So technological advancements shown in Star Wars are more plausible as the technology doesn't defy the physical principles and are more seen in Star Trek than in Star Wars. Therefore, they don't contradict with the laws of physics. You can say that the Force, first of all, do not bring up the Force because the Force is a mythical element to the movie, and that's what makes it fantasy. Do not assume that just because it's fantasy, it doesn't have any scientific relevance, or that it has less scientific relevance just because it's put in the category of scientific fantasy. Because scientific fantasy means there is something that is not supposed to be real, which is, in Star Wars' case, is just magic. So I hope that the government side is aware of this. And Star Trek also shows the ability to time travel, which the laws of physics have already been disapproved by Albert Einstein's research. This is because of the butterfly effect, that if you go back in time, you would alter the reality in the future. And that is already disproved by the laws of physics. So the time travel in Star Trek is already disproven. Next, the transporter in Star Trek. You aren't able to teleport from one place to another, because according to the laws of physics, in order for you to be transported from one place to another, you must be disintegrated in one place and rebuilt in another. Does that sound logic to you? Does that sound in any way scientifically plausible to you? And just to hold you up there, it doesn't. So I hope that the government side would come up with a better feature on why they want to say that Star Trek is more scientifically dominant than Star Wars, because Star Wars have far more Star Wars have more realistic features to it in terms of scientific technologies, in terms of the development, as can be seen from the percentage of what has been made a reality by now. You can make a comparison between Star Trek and Star Wars and see that more of the Star Wars technologies have actually been realized and have been made real in today's day and age. So with that, I hope that the members of the floor would also agree in opposing today's motion, and that Star Trek is not more scientifically sound than Star Wars. With that, I rest my case.
Okay, thank you, Miss Ailey. Ladies and gentlemen, and the honorable adjudicators, I shall now call upon the government whip to rebut.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Yes, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
I prefer my POI verbal, so I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So today's topic, we are discussing about this house belief that Star Trek is more scientifically sound than Star Wars. So the first thing first is, the problem in today's debate on the opposition side is, first thing first, we already set the best ground on what should be debating and what we shouldn't debating about. And that is, in first, my Prime Minister has told you guys about the thing we should debating is not about the movie Star Trek and Star Wars. We already concluded that in Star Trek, it is science fiction, while in Star Wars, it is science fantasy. So we should debating about either science fiction is more scientifically sound than science fantasy. So the debate should be on the background, which is the science fiction versus science fantasy, not Star Wars versus Star Trek. And we already told you why, because should be broaden our topic of discussion for today. So, moving on to the deputy leader of opposition, I think this is my concern because she told us about how Star Wars technology seems more plausible and how science fantasy is more plausible, and because it don't contradict with the with the real life. So in this case, she told us about how she disregarding Star Trek as more scientifically sound because Star Trek do have time travel, but that is the only bad thing about Star Trek. They only can find that time travel is the only illogical things in science fiction. While in science fantasy, we already show you more about the illogical things that we can be think by that can be achievable and comprehensible by humans, such as the levitating power, the force power, the lightsaber itself. We don't have any lightsaber for our sword nowadays, so that's why we think that this doesn't contradict, and this point should be taken care of by the leader of opposition, because I think this point just merely the same with the leader of opposition. And next, and I'll tell you why later. And now I'll move to the leader of opposition, in which the first thing first that intrigued myself is when the when the
Please.
when the leader of opposition has told us about how Star Trek is fantasy too. She told us in her the first thing she told the host is Star Trek is fantasy too, so we should reject your definition. But the thing is, if you read again in the info slide that have been given to this motion, which is Star Wars is usually classified as science fantasy, while in the other hand science fiction. In the other hand, Star Trek is science fiction. So I think you should check again your fact. You should read again your info slide because you are claiming that Star Trek is science fantasy. So with that, I prove it to you that Star Trek is not science fantasy. And next thing is the leader of opposition already told the same thing about the same thing just like the deputy leader of opposition said, which is Star Wars is more scientific in terms that in Star Wars, we already achieved things like hologram, transport, and lightsaber. I don't think for lightsaber, I still doubt this because we don't have plasma sword nowadays. Plasma sword haven't been achieved yet. So the thing is here in his during her arguments, the technology isn't in science fantasy isn't as measured as in science fiction. Why? Because the technology in science fantasy have been overshadowed by supernatural powers. If we ask people a lot about the movie Star Wars itself, all people majorly remember is about the force and force and lightsaber. And then because why? The supernatural power comes more to attraction rather than the technology itself. If we ask people about Star Wars, do you think that they remember the flying cars rather than they remember the force itself?
Your eye, please.
Even the motto of the movie is "May the Force be with you." So the highlight of science fantasy movie is the fantasy itself. They majorly highlighting the fantasy itself. They promoting the fantasy itself more than they promoting the science on realistic footing. Why the overshadow is happening today? Because the purpose of science fantasy genre, which is just for an example, the movie Star Wars, the purpose of making the movie is to promote creativity in fantasy more, while in science fiction such as Star Trek, the purpose to create the movie is we can develop the realistic science and technology, because the technology used in science fiction is more achievable than and comprehensible by human rather than in science fantasy. So before I continue, yes, POI?
Hi, I would like to know why you are fixating on the fact that other people would remember the thing about the force. We are now debating on whether the technology present in science fantasy or science fiction is more plausible. Which one is more plausible? Not who remembers what from what movie. Thank you. Sorry.
The thing is, they don't remember what and what because the major things that showed the movie itself. Because in science fantasy, they are promoting more about the fantasy rather than in science fiction. They are more promoting about the technology itself. So in that, with that, I would like to prove that in my sum up of the cases between both sides. So today I would like to tell you guys about first thing first why we are more suggesting toward the answer because in government we told you guys about the theme of the science fiction in my first PM point. So in this point we told you guys about we consider the technology usage in future for future prediction since it is far more realistic to achieve rather than in science fantasy where for an example meditation can develop supernatural power, and then in science fiction also we can inspire technology advancement since it's more scientifically sound. And next in during my deputy prime minister he told you guys about the proof in which technology had been used nowadays. Those technology portrayed in 1966 Star Trek movie has majority achieved, such as thus this proof that the science fiction more scientifically sound. So the example of this technology that we use nowadays is GPS, Taylor's computer, universe translator, and so on, so on. While in the opposition side, they just simply said that science fantasy is more scientifically sound, but they never show how science fantasy, such as Star Wars, is more achievable and more comprehensible. With that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Volunteer. It is now time to listen to the rebuttals of opposition whip, Mr. Deva.
All right. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
All right. I'll start my speech in a while. Okay. Three, two, one. Before I start my speech, let me quote a special quote from Master Yoda from Star Wars, which is, "The dark side clouds everything, impossible to see the light the future is." So obviously we can see that side government is totally clouded by the dark side of the force, where they have been totally misleading us from the beginning of the debate by painting a very poor portrayal of how Star Wars, the whole concept of Star Wars is actually. So from the get-go, let me try to re-clarify what exactly in essence Star Wars actually tries to paint a picture of. Yes, we do have the magical concepts such as the Force, but we can't totally disregard some of the technological concepts that were brought within Star Wars. For example, we have the Millennium Falcon, which was the ship used by Han Solo and his crew to fly around the universe, which employs the technology of hyperspace travel, in which they travel with light speed across multiple space portals, making multiple space jumps in order for them to explore around the universe. Other than that, we have other technologies such as the lightsabers and also technologies, whatever technologies that they mentioned before, such as technologies of virtual communications, are also employed within the movie or within the Star Wars franchise itself. So whatever technological advances that they tried to paint a picture of within the Star Trek franchise is not mutually exclusive only to their side. Now, moving on our side, we have successfully provided several evidences, which I will re-clarify again, of some of the realistic emulations that we have provided in the modern day society of the technological concept applied within Star Wars. Whereas on their side, they are totally unaware and were detached from the factual storyline that was portrayed within the movie of Star Wars, and they were so fixated on some of the advances that was actually emulated in today's world, and they tried so hard and tried so desperately to say that this is only exclusive from the movie of Star Trek itself. And in this debate, I would like to largely emphasize that the burden of proof of side opposition is not only to prove how, if it's not to prove how more scientifically unsound we are from in comparison to Star Trek, at least we are trying to prove that we are not less scientifically unsound. We do provide the same benefits, and our scientific the technologies that we have are still feasible within our current capacity. Now, the benefits that we have provided under our side are visible evidences that some of the concepts under the world of Star Wars are completely feasible, or at least under scientific researchers. It is very important for us to note that side government are totally ignorant in whatever evidences that we came up before. We did say that the lightsaber was already created, although it is in concept not as same as the composition of what an actual lightsaber is, which is being inserted the kyber crystal, which powers the housing device of the lightsaber. However, the same concept or the whole material or the whole function of the lightsaber that was created by Hacksmith Industries. If you guys are free, probably you guys can go to YouTube and search Hacksmith Industries and see how they created the first model prototype of a lightsaber, using plasma technology, which is able to cut through metals, cut through metal glass, metal doors and whatnot, which shows us how feasible the technology applied within the franchise of Star Wars is actually done in the modern society. Other than that, any scientific benefits that they have came up with on their side, which is transportation of human beings in the outer space, exploration of other organisms in the outer space, is also has already been derived or has already been achieved under our world itself. In Star Wars, we have seen that the exploration of various organizations or various crews within the Star Wars franchise, whether they are evil or whether they are good, to explore other planets as well, other communities and other civilizations, is a proof that our world is also as significantly or scientifically sound as their world. Other than that, the scientific progress that they have emulated under their world is not a benefit exclusively under their premise. Furthermore, whatever evidences that they have provided and whatever examples that they have provided. For example, this talked about how we are able to create tablets, which is a touchscreen device which we can use, and this has been portrayed years back then when Star Trek was first released. This was also done so even in the movie Star Wars: A New Hope, in which Han Solo and the crew, they have handheld, portable and also touchscreen devices for them to track organisms or to track other beings as well. So this is something which I would say that it does not mean that we are whatever, even if we are a in terms of genre, we are a science fantasy, but we are still portraying what is feasible in today's world. Other than that, to further disprove how probably their side is less scientifically unsound, let me pull out some of the evidences or some of the technology that was portrayed in Star Trek to be scientifically unsound. For example, the transporter beam, where where there's a famous quote which is "Beam me up, Scotty," in which there are many scientists who says that this is the least feasible technology that can be achieved under our current capacity, because transporting atoms or transporting particles from one location to another is simply unachievable. Probably people might argue that we have quantum teleportations in the modern world, but quantum teleportation, which applies the concept of quantum entanglement, will only be able to transport data or quantum information from one place to another in order for us to reproduce an exact copy of that same product that was transported in terms of its information. But however, the principle of quantum teleportation is that we are unable to transport a physical object from one place to another. Why is that so? If we do attempt to do so, what will happen is that we are unable to rearrange the same arrangement or the same sequence of the arrangement of the particles that was transported from point A to point B, and this will cause further complications, which I would like to say that it is totally ridiculous on their side, which actually proves how the Star Trek franchise is actually less scientifically sound compared to our side. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, I would like to say that Star Wars is actually as scientifically unsound, if it's not more scientifically unsound compared to the world of Star Trek. And I've proven to you, and my teammates have proven to you, there are various evidences that we have actually achieved or managed to emulate in today's world to prove that these technologies are actually feasible and achievable and can benefit the society in the near future. With that, I am proud to oppose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now that we have heard all the three speakers from both teams, we shall take a short break of 1 minute. During this time, both the government and the opposition teams will prepare their reply speech. The time of 1 minute has ended. I shall now invite the second speaker from the opposition team to deliver the reply speech. Ms. Ili?
Again, I will stop my camera, okay? Because I'm afraid my voice will crack.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, a bit to all the adjudicators and my fellow debaters. I am the deputy leader of the opposition side, and in this session, I would like to address the clashes of points brought up in the debate today, reaffirm my team's case, and ultimately prove why we have the better stand in this debate session. So, first of all, let's look at the clashes of points. Let's look first of all at the part of realistic. The opposition side had stated how technologies that are more realistic and plausible to achieve are present in the storyline of Star Wars rather than in the storyline of Star Trek. We have also provided multiple examples that ultimately devour the cases given by the government side. Well, the government side had only brought up and only been fixating on the fact that magic plays a role in certain areas of the stories. They don't even acknowledge that there are technological advancements in the movie that people are actually disregarding magic of. So people are actually moving on those technological advancements without regarding the need for magic, and that is what the government side has been blind of. They have failed to establish that Star Trek has more technological advancements than, or is more soundly scientific than in Star Wars. And I would also like to address that the opposition always keeps fixating on whether Star Trek is the opposition has been fixating in this debate on whether Star Trek is more scientifically sound than Star Wars, and not whether science fantasy is more scientifically sound than science fiction. And this is because if you widen the scope, then I could have brought up the point that in which technologies in Transformer, which is a science fantasy movie, is more plausible than in any other science fiction movie. So moving on. I would like to talk about the differences in this debate that the side of opposition has brought up that has proved our dominance rather than the government side. For example, we have disproved a lot of their technological advancements. For example, when they say that time travel could be plausible, we already in my speech I've already stated that it has been disproved. The theory has been disproved by Albert Einstein that if you go back in time, the butterfly effect will totally alternate the future reality, in which it's not possible. And also transporter. We have already given the example. It's not the only scientific presence in the movie, but we have disproved so many of their technologies, but they can't seem to disprove one of us. The only fact they think they can disprove that Star Wars is less scientifically sound than Star Trek is just of the presence of magic, and that is irrelevant in all factors that they have discarded completely. The fact that, for example, C3PO and R2D2, that the AI advancements, robots that can communicate with humans, they have discarded that fact, and they say that of course we can't make exactly the same lightsabers, but we are coming close to at least a replica or a cheap replica of what it could have been without magic. And that is the technological advancements that prove that Star Wars is much more supreme in scientifically being sound than Star Trek. With that, I end my speech. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ili. I shall now call upon the Prime Minister from the government team to deliver their reply speech.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can't really hear you that clearly.
Can hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
All right. Mr. Speaker, in this reply speech, I will talk to you and I will compare between both side points. So first, let's take a look about a more scientifically sound. So I will just compare it like this. If you ask about the movie to someone about Star Trek or about Star Wars or between Avengers and another science fiction story, which one do you think that is more comprehensible, that can be more easily explained to the people? So that is why we say about scientifically sound is easy to comprehensible and achievable. Yes, you can say we have to do plasma, we have done so many things about Star Wars just to make sure that Star Wars can become a reality. But in the end of the day, you forgot the term of comprehensible. When the people hear about the Jedi, when the people hear about the hologram and everything, does it comprehensible to the people? That is what we prove in the debate today. Because when we talk about the Star Trek, at the first argument, we talk about Star Trek, how Star Trek going around, going to space exploration, finding for inhabitable planet. When people hear it, they can understand that right now in the world we have done a research about a planet with water, about a planet that have a chance to be inhabitable. Even we have heard about Elon Musk, about his trip to the Mars, about his trip to the space and everything. This means is the idea of space exploration by the Star Trek is easily comprehensible and can be extracted by the people. Compared to the science fantasy, when I talk about the Eye of Agamotto, for example, about the Avengers, about Doctor Strange, the opposition itself has proved that going back in time is not possible. It will do butterfly effect and everything. That is what I said about how the science fantasy is not comprehensible by the people. Because in the end of the day, when the Doctor Strange going back to the time, fighting with Dormammu, it has proven that we cannot go back in time. So because it defies the law of physics. Secondly, we talk about the dystopian setting where in the Star Trek we have when we see the computer, when we see the telepresence or the or translator, we can just clearly prove. Oh, I know. When you talk about the computers that you can touch. So we can see about the tablet, for example. We have it right now. Some of us using iPad, some of us using Samsung Tab. It is comprehensible. Next, about the telepresence. Right now, we have been connecting virtually. First time we do a debate in the virtual manner. Is it not comprehensible? It is comprehensible. Lastly, we talk about the universal translator. We talk about how we can speak with other people, how we can search for the word in the Google Translator and everything. So this entire things of the Star Trek is more scientifically sound, more scientifically achievable and comprehensible rather than Star Wars, where you can say, oh, we want to beating around the bush, we want to do something until we can get Star Wars sword or something. This does not prove that in the end of the day, does not prove in your argument the Star Wars is more scientifically sound than Star Trek, because in the end of the day, there are no comparison between Star Wars and the Star Trek that you have been brought forward in your argument. So, Mr. Speaker, I hope the case accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We have now come to the end of the debate. Debaters are asked to remain in this room while waiting for the adjudicators to make a decision. And adjudicators are reminded to move to the adjudicators discussion room in the Cisco WebEx via the link provided.
Question: where is the other edge?
Oh, they're watching from YouTube.
Right.
But
Because
and so
I'm in the room in WebEx, but I
mhm.
don't see her. Her kan? Farah Diba, I think so.
Yeah, there's supposed to be 4 people. Miss Alexia.
Okay. Thanks. So I'll just
Okay.
wait in the WebEx room, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and if you're done discussing, you can announce the results here.
Okay. Hello?
Yes.
I still can't get the other edge. Like, should I wait for her or should I not?
Really? That they're not there? Wait, let me ask through YouTube. Miss Alexia, are you here?
It's not Alexia, there's a
Um,
change. I think it
there's a
was,
change?
yep, it's Nur Farah Adiba binti Zakaria. I'm not sure where.
Uh, in my list there are 4 adjudicators for this room.
Okay.
So there should be at least one. But wait, let me ask them for a second, okay?
Thank you.
They're asking if you have joined WebEx, the
Yeah,
breakout
I'm in.
room.
I'm in. I mean, like,
Nobody else is there.
like in my case, I'm the only one here, so I'm not sure which room are they in.
Okay, let me
Edge room
confirm.
5. I'm in Edge room 5. Did they have the right link? Because I was added here by I think one of your committees. I think so.
Wait, I'm confirming. Can you check on private chat if that is the right link?
Right. Hello. Aha. Saya tak jumpa lah yang Edge lain lagi satu tu. Ya. I mean boleh je saya bagi decision. Tapi yalah nak dengar from her as well. I'm not sure. Yeah, probably she's tak ada kot. Eh.
So how? We're talking to the technical person over there.
I think there's no point in waiting kot. I think I should just tell my verdict.
Okay, I
Right.
think so as well.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I just give my general overview first, like how I saw the debate. Um, Probably it's more of a straightforward debate whereby you should give some examples from the movies of such technologies, like space travel or design of the planes. Um, Probably on virtual discussion as well, in the sense of hologram or some sort. So yeah, those kind of things you guys should talk about, because those are the things that are relevant. So yeah, generally I would say I'll not comment specifically on the speakers lah, but I see it as an op win, just because that government has provided poor contextualization of the case, in a sense that the explanation of Star Wars and Star Trek are very basic, I would say. There's no in-depth context in it. Like, are you guys here? Sorry, you guys
Yeah,
like? All right, cool, cool, cool. Okay, so that's the first problem, and then probably the government side failed to actually provide me with relevant technologies that are different, because in a sense, if you guys keep saying things, probably there are some. I saw some from the second speaker, but probably not enough, and it's not engaging enough in a sense. Um, because there's very little comparative coming from the government side compared to opposition. And then you talk about um, virtual meeting. You talk about virtual meeting, right? Which I think opposition has proven that it's mutually exclusive on both ends. On both ends, yeah. So yeah, I can't credit you on that. Yeah, but generally, mm, yeah. I think OP has said a lot of technologies that are feasible, and they've provided sufficient proof, I would say. And but most importantly, I think the government did not engage in a very depth manner. Like, you really engage on the analysis of the technologies, because in the end, like, the comparative that I was looking for, like it's like for example your comparative on the designs of the planes, for example, like how Star Wars and Star Trek design their planes. They are, is it defies the laws of physics, blah blah blah, this kind of stuff, right? I think it was a little bit more well explained on Upside, whereby Gov was somehow being very basic in the explanation, I would say. Yeah, and that is why I gave the win to the opposition side. Congratulations. And if you guys have questions regarding personal feedback, do contact me directly, or you can ask through this room. I don't mind. Yeah, contact me
Okay.
through my number is, wait, I'll share in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, you can share it in the personal chat. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I guess that's all for today, and I will end the broadcast now.